Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you yet another one, this one being the Puma One 20.1 in all black, which might be the worst launch colorway ever, because if they didn't tell us this was the 20.1, I don't even think most people would notice. It also retails for the same $200 because it's almost the same boot. Which is not necessarily a bad thing, because the Puma One 5.1 that this boot replaces was arguably the best one ever made. The question, of course, is the new one better than the old one? Will Puma ever count past one? Will there be another one? Either way, this is the latest one. We're going to talk about what makes it different from the previous one and ultimately determine whether or not this is the one that you should buy, including, of course, how they fit and feel on feet. So if you want to learn everything there is to know about these, please stick around, watch the entire review, and if you're interested in a pair for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That's going to take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes to pick these up below their normal $200 retail price. For those wondering, the boots come in a box. Shocking, I know, and inside that box you get nothing. Not one single thing. Let's get right to it. Old one, new one, and I know what you're thinking, they look almost exactly the same, and that's because they are almost the exact same boots, with two main differences that I think are at least somewhat noticeable. Difference number one has to do with this sprint web material that takes up the lateral side of the upper. It has the same general kind of grid pattern to it. You can see it on the black pair here, which is the newer 20.1. The difference is actually the finish on the surface, which has a little bit more of like a sticky, rubbery sensation on the newer model, which just means slightly more grip on the ball. But honestly, this is something that could vary from colorway to colorway. For this blackout pair though, it does have a little bit more of a rubberized texturing to it. The other difference is going to be in the kangaroo leather portion of the upper, where you can see it does have an internal support cage here on the 5.1 in the form of these little strips or lines, if you will, that act as a reinforcement in place of stitching. The quality of the leather is super thin, and honestly, it's some of the nicest leather you'll find on any top-end football boot, where on the newer 20.1, you'll notice that it has a different pattern. The lines now have some curves to it, and the overall support cage as a whole seems to be a little bit more significant. So there is some added structure to the leather, which is equally as thin, and I would say equally as soft as well. But because of the added structure, maybe the boot feels slightly more responsive, but once broken in, honestly, it's very difficult to tell a difference. Also, the pull tab has dots. That is all. And that really sums up the Puma One 20.1. It is a slight refresh over the 5.1 model that it replaces. So if you have the 5.1 right now and you really like them and there's nothing wrong with them, don't feel the need to run out and buy the 20.1 right away. In fact, I would actually recommend buying the Puma One 5.1 that you can get for over 50% off at almost every single retailer, because the boot hasn't sold that well, rather than paying full retail for the 120.1, because the boot and the concept as a whole is still a really good one. And no pun intended there, even though that was fully intended. I think what's cool about the Puma One concept is it really is this kind of all-in-one pair of football boots, which is why it's so difficult to compare to almost everything else out there right now, in that it does have some speed boot characteristics, especially with this reinforced sprint web material on the lateral side. Then it has some kind of control and heritage boot type elements with the kangaroo leather, which offers a very comfortable feel and an excellent touch on the ball. Then of course you get the sock boot element with this kind of sock-like enclosure made out of their Evo knit material that runs across the top of the foot and then of course extends into a collar. And of course it does have some speed boot vibes with the Rapid Sprint outsole that is, I would say, the most aggressive one on offer from the Puma brand. It has great flexibility to it, feels nice and solid on feet as well, and offers really aggressive traction with its FG-AG layout. It's definitely not a boot for everybody, but if you're kind of undecided on what you want in a pair of football boots, the Puma One wouldn't be a bad option, because it really is one of those boots that has a little bit of everything. In terms of touch, the boot as a whole is on the thinner side, but I wouldn't necessarily describe it as having a barefoot feel. The sprint web that you have on the lateral side is going to be the thinnest part of the upper, but it still does have some internal padding there. So just keep in mind that it's not really that pingy barefoot sensation that I think some people might expect from a boot that is more or less marketed as a speed boot. It also does have some extra grip with the texturing on the surface here, which you might like, you might dislike. That's more of a personal preference thing and probably something that you'll get used to anyways. As far as the kangaroo leather is concerned, that's definitely my favorite part of the boot. Very soft, offering this really nice natural sensation on the ball, and it is on the thinner side. So if you're expecting these to feel bulky because leather kind of has that stigma these days, these do not feel bulky in any way at all. Of course, the laces run directly up the middle with this one-piece enclosure made out of an Evo knit material that has some nice stretch to it. The boot as a whole wraps your foot very, very nicely, and actually comes up a little bit higher than pretty much any other mid-cut football boot. So from a lockdown, and I don't want to say ankle supports perspective, but in terms of actually feeling like there's something extra around your ankle rather than just some loose material, this does that better than any other mid-cut sock boot on the market right now. So something worth keeping in mind, especially if you typically struggle with heel lockdown. I think the lockdown on this boot is pretty fantastic, and it's nice on the medial side as they did with the 5.1. They do give you some extra options to get a little bit more of a deeper grab in the upper to lock your heel down that much more if you feel that it's needed. And it's just nice to have those extra customization options as well. Internally, it's exactly the same with this smooth synthetic suede lining material. Very, very comfortable against the foot. And of course, the insole is fully removable and pretty much as straightforward as it gets, featuring a synthetic suede liner on the surface and being made from a single layer of what looks to be a standard EVA foam. As a base, you'll find the Rapid Sprint sole plate, which is unchanged from the last several generations of Puma One. It does also feature an external heel counter, which I'm personally a fan of, both in terms of feel as well as looks. And the sole plate as a whole just has a really nice feel to it. I think this is one of the more underrated sole plates and stud patterns on the market. The stud pattern technically being FG-AG, you can get away with using this on artificial grass. I don't think that it feels unsafe in any way, but I do think that the studs are a little bit on the longer side for something that is supposed to serve the purpose of being used on artificial grass. If it's a little bit more of a shallow pitch, you might find that the studs are slightly too long, which could lead to issues with instability as well as stud pressure long term. But in general, you shouldn't have too many issues with it. And as a whole, especially on natural grass, it actually provides more aggressive traction than you might expect. Despite not really looking like a traditional speed boot, this is technically a boot in the speed category, and you would expect any top-end speed boot to be light, and the Puma One 20.1 is. In a size 9.5 US, you can see that the boots weigh in at 7.3 ounces, the equivalent of 207 grams, which if you want to compare that to the 5.1 that it replaces, it's pretty much identical down to the gram. No difference whatsoever, which is not surprising given that it's almost exactly the same boot. And in comparison to most other top-end speed boots out there, it's pretty much on par with everything else and just offers a nice lightweight feel on feet. So as you can see, I have swapped out the stock black laces for some black reflective SR4U replacement laces, which are appropriately the #1 brand of replacement laces in the world. It's a great way of changing up the style of your boots in a very inexpensive way. So if you're interested in some for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. So if you're interested in some, be sure to go ahead and check that out. Now I have to be honest, if you put me in a blindfold, threw these on my feet and told me they were the Puma One 5.1, I would believe you because they feel pretty much exactly the same. The shape, the width, the volume, the leather, despite having what looks to be a more significant internal support gauge, it all feels identical. There is no difference here whatsoever, which is not necessarily a bad thing because the Puma One 5.1 was an extremely comfortable pair of football boots, as these are as well. And I guess credit to Puma right now across the board with their top-end models. I think that they are making probably the most comfortable lineup on the market right now between the One, the Future, as well as the Puma King Platinum. So definitely can't go wrong if comfort is something that you're after, especially when it comes to heel lockdown as well. I think the heel lockdown on the Puma One is some of the best that you can get from any football boot available. As far as width is concerned, I think these are going to be suitable for pretty much any foot type given the lacing system that they've implemented here. If you have wider feet, they're good because you also get that little bit of stretch from the leather. Even if you had narrower feet, I still think you're going to get really good lockdown and quite a nice wrap around your foot. It just has that shape that pretty much works with every foot type. And as far as the overall sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US. and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you're looking to order some for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, given the fact that Puma have now released 3 generations of One in a span of less than a year, it shouldn't be too surprising that the latest One 20.1 is nothing revolutionary. In fact, I wouldn't even go as far as to say that this is even an improvement at all over the Puma One 5.1 that it replaces. Luckily, it's also not worse. It's pretty much just a variation, a very slight variation of the exact same product. So while I thought the Puma One 5.1 was good, I still think the Puma One 20. I'm not even trying to screw this up. It's just the names are so dumb. If you've been a fan of the Puma One series so far, there's nothing about the One 20.1 that you're also not going to like. The question is, do people still care about the Puma One, and are they ready for the Puma 2? Anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in some of these for yourself, you can click the first link down below. That's going to take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes to pick these up below their normal $200 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. If you aren't subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.